And in this video, we continue with the judges summing up in court and look a little bit closer into the connection between Donna Jaggers and the man who would later become convicted of the Rettendon triple murders, Michael Steele.
It was a crime which pushed everything else off the front pages. 3 men, all known criminals, found shot dead in the Essex countryside. It was a cold-blooded, professional killing. The victims had many enemies, but which one wanted them executed?
And welcome back to a new video on the Essex Boys case. As always, if you are enjoying the content, please do give the video a thumbs up. And if you're interested in the Essex Boys case, or simply true crime in general, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. Michael Steele then spoke about the importation that he was sentenced to 9 years for. He said, quote, "The importation when I had a 9-year prison sentence was one when I flew the drugs across. In 1995, I still held a flying licence. I was at Earl's Colne and was aware of other flying clubs in Essex. In the East Anglia area, there are hundreds of disused airstrips from wartime. You did not need an airstrip to land an aircraft. In 1995, I had knowledge of airstrips. It's simple and easy to fly across the North Sea. I could go into a mandate strip well before they opened in the dark and do something stupid if I wanted to. The field near to Workhouse Lane I had no knowledge of whatsoever in 1995, nor as to whether it was suitable at all. I don't know Workhouse Lane at all. I have never told Darren Nichols about my courting days in that lane." Michael Steele said, quote, "On the 24th of November 1995, I moved Sarah Saunders. I was made aware that she was going to leave well before Tate was even released from prison on the 31st of October. Jackie and I assisted. We arrived at around 9:30 to 10 a.m. in my Hilux towing a trailer. There was just Sarah Saunders and Pat Tate there then. Tate was quite okay. He was running hot and cold and they were bickering and arguing about what could be taken. I was fetching and carrying things to the truck. It took a couple of hours to load and I made 2 trips. Just before we finished, there was quite a dispute between Sarah and Pat. It was quite heated. Pat used an expression, he used it quite often. "I'll have you fucking nutted." It was a threat and it means I will have you shot in the head. It was temper, nose to nose, and it arose over the compact discs. It was just temper and he didn't lay a finger on her. He wanted to cuddle her when he left. His attitude to me was exactly what it has always been, a totally friendly basis. There was no animosity between me and Pat about anything. We were just chatting away and sitting on the floor in the children's room. Then a number of people turned up and agree with what Sarah Saunders said happened. I saw Craig Rolfe's girlfriend there, Donna Jaggers, sitting in the Range Rover outside the premises in the rear near side seat. He said, quote, "I have never seen her before in my life," end quote. That, of course, is a conflict between him and Donna Jaggers. Again, members of the jury, whether there are any conflicts in the evidence, that is a matter entirely for you and no one else. Michael Steele continued, "I wasn't involved in the chat going on. I was more keen to get away because I realised what was going on. They were talking about cannabis and I heard the racket of what you would call an automatic pistol. I was keen to get out," end quote. Right, so a few interesting things to pick up upon during those paragraphs I've just read out there. Now, interestingly there, it mentions a fairly accurate date in terms of when Tucker, Tate and Rolfe came into possession of the submachine gun. This was the gun, this was the weapon which was provided to them by Mad Mick Bowman. Now, in Donna Jaggers' statement, she was fairly vague regarding the date that this actually occurred. She said it was around a week after Tucker's birthday, which was the 17th of November. But Michael Steele here is giving us an accurate date, the 24th of November 1995. Interestingly, this is Donna Jaggers' recollection of those events. She stated in her police statement the following: "When we arrived outside Pat's house, Pat and Tony Tucker were sitting in Anna Whitehead's, Tucker's girlfriend's, Suzuki Vitara. I cannot remember if Craig had spoken to them on his mobile phone prior to arriving at the house. Tony and Pat got out of the Vitara and Craig took the holdall and gun from the boot and all three went into the house. Sarah Saunders was at this time moving her stuff out of the house with the help of two friends. I didn't want to get involved in what was potentially a difficult situation, so I stayed in the car. Craig was in the house for around 10 to 15 minutes and then returned to the car with the holdall and gun. He put the items back in the boot and then drove to 108 Mill Green where the gun and holdall were put into the loft. On the way from Gordon Road, Craig was saying how pleased they were with it and how much damage it could cause. Oh, I've just noticed something quite important here, I believe, once reading this part of Donna Jagger's statement. Bearing in mind we've got Michael Steele here, who has said, I saw Donna Jaggers there. She was sitting in the near side of the vehicle. She was a passenger in the Range Rover. Now, this is correct, even according to Donna Jagger's statement. But where this gets a little bit more curious is when we take a look at what Donna Jaggers is actually saying here. She said that Sarah Saunders was at this time moving her stuff out of the house with the help of two friends. She claims that she knows Michael Steele. She's seen Michael Steele on a few occasions. Now, why has she not identified Michael Steele as one of these two individuals helping Sarah Saunders to move out? Now, not only do we have Michael Steele's word for this, but we also have the word of Sarah Saunders, who backs up Michael Steele's version of events. That Michael Steele and Jackie Street went round to Sarah Saunders' property, 49 Gordon Road, and helped her move out, basically. So there's two individuals helping Sarah Saunders move out. Yet when Donna Jaggers turns up, she sees these two people, but she doesn't recognise them as Michael Steele and Jackie Street. I find that really, really bizarre because we've had, in previous Donna Jagger statements, we've had, I saw Michael Steele, he was carrying something big from the boot of a car. I was looking in my rear view mirror, I could see it was him, or I passed him heading up to the house and he didn't want me to look at him. All these sort of, strange words and strange phrases that Donna Jaggers comes out with. But this could be incredibly telling, actually. The fact that she's mentioning here two friends, two individuals helping Sarah Saunders move out, but she does not identify one of these individuals as Michael Steele. Does that go to lend some credibility to what Michael Steele is saying there in terms of, I've never seen this woman before in my life. I've never met Donna Jaggers. I've never met her. Does that lend some credibility there to what Michael Steele is claiming? Right, so this has kind of sent me down a little bit of a rabbit hole now, to be honest. After I've read this out, I've gone back and checked over the Donna Jagger statements to try and make some sense of what she is saying in those police statements. Now, bearing in mind, the murders take place on the 6th of December. Her first police statement does not originate until the 8th of the 2nd, 96. Interestingly, the very first statement that she makes is regarding handing over that submachine gun. It's all about how they got hold of it. Mad Mick Bowman was involved. She talks about the trip to Sarah Saunders' house, seeing the two friends helping her move, i.e. Steele and Jackie Street. And then she talks about handing the gun over to D.I. Florence. Now, by all accounts, I don't know if this is true, but I've been told, and a lot of people seem to corroborate this, but by all accounts, Donna Jaggers ended up in a relationship with D.I. Florence, the very same person that she hands over this submachine gun to. So we've got this statement here, which is on, as I say, the 8th of the 2nd, 1996. No mention whatsoever regarding Michael Steele. No description of a man matching Michael Steele's description. Nothing at all describing Michael Steele in any way, shape or form. This first statement, as I say, it's all to do with handing over this gun, basically saying, look, there's this submachine gun, I've got to hand it in, blah, blah, blah. So that's the first statement that Donna Jaggers makes, the first official statement. Her next official statement originates a month after that statement, the 14th of the 3rd, 1996. It's at this point in time where all of a sudden, We have Michael Steele inserted into the frame. Okay, so let's just read a little bit of this statement, shall we? I am the common law wife of Craig Rolfe, whom had been my partner for 7 years. I've been asked about Craig's association with Tony Tucker and Pat Tate and their involvement with drug dealing and the circumstances surrounding their deaths. Craig had been involved with Tucker for approximately 3 or 4 years and was registered as a director of Tucker's security company running nightclub doors. This was in name only, and I know that Craig never had any involvement in running the business. His association started as a result of Tucker buying drugs from Craig. They then became more involved as time went on, and they started doing drug deals together. In early 1995, Craig was not being very active and was not completing many deals, therefore he did not have much money. He was being promised that a large deal was due, which would provide him with plenty of money. In the meantime, we were just scraping to get by. I later learnt from Craig that a person called Mickey the pilot, who I now know to be called Michael Steele, was a friend of Pat Tate, who in turn was a friend of Tony Tucker. Steele I understood to be a pilot who brought drugs into the country, and I understood that he had been in prison for it. Craig told me that Steele was a ruthless person who really didn't think much of other people. In early 1995, I was aware that Tate was in prison, and I recall Tucker and one other person, whose details I do not know, running around getting Tate's money together to finance the deal. I am fairly sure that John McCarthy had some of Tate's money. Craig told me that this was happening and stated that Michael Steele was happy to continue bringing it in until they were all millionaires. I cannot say when the deal took place, but I can say that at the time I witnessed the changeover of the drugs. Mickey Steele drove to Longwood Stables in Dry Street, Rettendon Essex, where Tucker had 2 horses. I arrived there with Craig and met Tony, who was with his horses. We waited for Mick to arrive, which he did in a blue Toyota RAV4. Although I had remained in our car and I had my back to where Mickey Steele had parked, I was able to look over my left shoulder towards the rear of his car. I saw Steele take a large dark-coloured kit bag measuring approximately 3 feet in length by about 12 to 15 inches in diameter from the boot of his car. By the way he was holding the bag, it appeared to be very heavy. He handed it to Tucker, who put it in the boot of our car, which was a Vauxhall Senator. Craig then got back into our car and drove to another location. Craig took the holdall out of the boot and took it to a safe house where all the drugs were stored. I went into the house with Craig, who then placed the bag on the table. He opened up the bag and I saw that it contained bars of brown cannabis resin which were all individually wrapped in a clear film. I was present when he checked that it was of good quality by burning and smelling a sample and then counting the bars. I am unable to say how many bars there were. I have only met Mickey Steele on a couple of occasions and that was only in passing. Okay, now I'll cut to the statement short here as it goes on and on and on basically, but it mentions Michael Steele probably another 10 or 15 or maybe even 20 times during that statement alone. So I just can't get my head around this. So basically we have her first official statement which appears on the 8th of the 2nd, 96, yet over a month later she's magically, I guess, remembered all of this information about Michael Steele, who he is, who he was, what he was like, what sort of personality he was. You know, she even mentions later on in the statement that, you know, Michael Steele has always made me aware that he doesn't want me to, or he didn't want me to look at him, and all this sort of like, I don't know, really, really strange, bizarre statements that come out of Donna Jagger's mouth. It's really, really odd. But what I find, as I say, most intriguing there is that in her first statement, she mentions 2 people helping Sarah Saunders move. Now we know who those 2 people are, Michael Steele and Jackie Street. Yet in her first statement, there's not a mention at all of Michael Steele. Not a mention of him. Not a mention of Mickey the pilot, Mick, Mickey, Mr. Steele, nothing. He doesn't exist in her first statement. Yet after she's handed this gun over, after she's handed a submachine gun over to the police, all of a sudden you get a massive long statement over a month later incriminating Michael Steele. The final piece of the puzzle concerning Donna Jaggers and her, how do you say, truthfulness, comes in the form of the last time she actually saw Craig Rolfe on the day he died. Now, recently released into the public domain was a CCRC appeal document. And in that document, it talks about the last time, as I say, that Donna Jaggers saw Craig Rolfe alive. There was some kind of statement or some kind of report taken down by none other than D.I. Florence himself. Let's take a listen in to that part of the CCRC appeal document, and then I'll leave you with my closing thoughts. Issue 15. It is submitted that Donna Jaggers' witness statement, dated the 14th of the 3rd, 1996, contradicts her account as reported by D.I. Florence in his report dated the 8th of the 12th, 95, and the police message M93, also dated the 8th of the 12th, 95. The Commission has considered Miss Jaggers' witness statement dated the 14th of March 1996, report R4 by ex-DI Florence and police message M93. The Commission notes that the CPS disclosed report R4 in slightly redacted form to the applicants before their trial on the 11th of April 1997. It was forwarded to Defence Counsel on the 23rd of April 1997. It follows that report R4 was available to be utilised in the applicant's appeal hearings in 1999 and 2006. In any event, the Commission does not consider Miss Jaggers' account as described in report R4 to be inconsistent with her trial evidence. Okay, so with all of that in mind, everything that we've discussed in this video, there's one more point that's worthy of mention, and that is really that the timeline surrounding the deaths of Tucker, Tate and Rolfe, a lot of this actually revolves around the timings of Donna Jaggers. Donna Jaggers claiming that she was dropped off at Lakeside Shopping Centre by Craig Rolfe, who then went on to collect Tucker and Tate. But I just get a really strange feeling every statement that I read from Donna Jaggers. And now this piece of information that I've come across in the judge's summing up. How much truth is there in the word of Donna Jaggers? The fact that she then went on to supposedly have a relationship with this DI, the guy that she actually hands over this submachine gun to. Her original statement makes no mention whatsoever of Michael Steele, as if he doesn't even exist, despite witnessing him helping Sarah Saunders move on the 24th of November. Yet 1 month later, her statement is filled with Michael Steele. Michael Steele did this, Michael Steele did that. I've seen Michael Steele on a few occasions. We've never spoke, but I've walked past him. I've seen him in the rearview mirror unloading drugs. Yet she can't recall Michael Steele being there at Sarah Saunders' property on the 24th of November 1995, just very shortly before the murders of Tucker, Tate and Rolfe.